Well, good morning, Michiganders. It is Tuesday, June 11th, and this is Tuesday with Tom, Michigan's only weekly internet show where we do answer your questions about estate planning and estate settlement in Michigan, and we do not send you a bill. I'm your host, Tom Doyle, estate planning attorney, lifelong Michigan resident, and ambassador for all things good in this great state of Michigan. Welcome to today's program. A brief recap of last week's show, Retirement, a Time to Volunteer. Volunteering during retirement, that's what I talked about, and some of the benefits to you, as well as obviously to the community at large, but in particular benefits to you to perhaps consider being a volunteer during your retirement. As I talked about, you have a lifetime of living to share, and it just might prolong a better life. So if it's something that you're considering, I encourage you to listen to last week's show, and I give some resources that are available for you to use to locate volunteer opportunities wherever you happen to be. Today's show: is Michigan holding your unclaimed property? But as always, please remember that what I'm about to discuss during the program is, as always, for educational purposes only. It is not intended to be legal advice. As always, you need to work with your attorney to determine what is appropriate for you and your estate plan. And of course, as always, before we get started, a reminder that Amanda and I would be honored to have the opportunity to help you protect your loved ones, either by putting together an estate plan for you, or perhaps amending a plan that you already have, or assisting you in settling a loved one's estate. Simply call the office today at 517-323-7366, and we'll set up a time to either personally meet with you here in the Lansing office, or if that's not going to be convenient for you, we can start with a telephone call wherever you happen to be. We, in fact, represent clients throughout the entire state of Michigan, settle estates throughout the entire state of Michigan. So we can start with a telephone call and see where we want to go from there with providing assistance to you. And as always, if it is an initial estate planning consultation with the office, we will send you a copy of our free estate planning guidebook that we recently updated. Although, if you want to get head start out on that, simply head on over to doylelawpc.com, where you can download a copy from the office website. And of course, we do have our Express Estate Plan service, and that's where you would meet with one of the many financial professionals who are located throughout the state of Michigan, who are authorized by our office to help facilitate your estate plan with our exclusive Express Estate Plan service. I think of it similar to getting life insurance. You go to your life insurance agent, they help you out, fill out the application, then they process the application for you. Similar kind of concept. You meet with a financial professional. They'll make sure that the information is all gathered and sent to us to review, and then we'll have a telephone consultation with you. And if we decide that it's appropriate and you agree, then we'll proceed and prepare your estate plan documents and mail them to you at home. If you already have a financial professional that you're working with, you might ask if that professional is already an authorized facilitator of our Express Estate Plan service, and if they're not, suggest that they give me a call, 517-323-7366, or send me an email, tom@doylelawpc.com, and I'll be happy to talk to them about what it takes to become authorized, or alternatively, visit expressestateplans.com, where we do provide more information about the service, as well as a map where you can locate contact information for an authorized facilitator who would be near you. Is Michigan holding your unclaimed property? As you might know or perhaps don't know, and perhaps more importantly, if you don't know, something that you should know, that the Michigan Department of Treasury literally has millions of dollars in lost or forgotten assets, such things as dormant bank accounts, maybe a bank account that you forgot about, a check that you never cashed, maybe a payroll check that never got cashed, valuables that are left in safety deposit boxes, investment accounts where the brokerage hasn't heard from you and perhaps you've forgotten that you even have the account, or maybe dormant stock certificates. All these different kinds of properties are being controlled by the Michigan Department of Transportation. And because they were considered abandoned and unclaimed by maybe it's the bank or the company, they then turn them over to the state of Michigan as required by Michigan law. So Michigan Department of Treasury becomes the custodian of those assets, and their job is to return them to the owners or the heirs who make rightful claims for the property. Essentially, the way it works is any asset that belongs to a third party that remains unclaimed for a specified period of time is considered to be unclaimed. Maybe it's an uncashed payroll check, has to be turned over to the state, for example, within 1 year. Most other property types, like other checks or bank accounts, etc., have to be turned over after 3 years. And government entities have to turn over all unclaimed property, regardless of what it's like, after 1 year. So there's a law. It's the Uniform Unclaimed Property Act. That's the law in the state of Michigan that requires businesses and government entities to report and submit to the Michigan Department of Treasury abandoned and unclaimed property that belongs to heirs whose last known address was in Michigan. All right, so do you have, or does, more importantly, the state of Michigan have possession of any of your unclaimed property? Well, here's where you can find out. Here's how to search and then make a claim if you find it for unclaimed property. First, go to the appropriate search page, and that's going to be found at Unclaimed Property. That's all one word, unclaimedproperty.michigan.gov. That's unclaimedproperty.michigan.gov. You're going to find a search area there. Type in your name, first name, last name, both, whatever you're looking for. There's going to be a place for last name, business name, field, etc., and simply click search. If you get too many results, you can start trying to narrow it down. Maybe you want to enter a city that you lived in or a zip code, and that will help narrow the search down for you. Once you see something in the list, and it's got your name, and it sounds like it might belong to you, then you can click on the Claim button. And once you do that, you then have the ability to view the claimed property, so you can get a better information on what that property is. Maybe it's an old life insurance policy or an unclaimed payroll check or a bank account, whatever it happens to be, so that you'll have a better idea, does this appear to be something that in fact belongs to you? Once you find something that you think belongs to you, that your next step is to submit a claim. Essentially what you then do is, while you're on that claim property information, you would then click next, and that will take you to the claimant info page. That's where you're going to enter your information. Essentially your current mailing address. They're going to want to know, what's your relationship to the owner? Are you the owner of it? Are you an heir of the owner of it? Maybe you're a personal representative of an estate. I know in our practice, Amanda, who primarily handles the estate settlements, we run an unclaimed property check just to see if the person who recently passed away has any unclaimed property that we should be looking for. And you fill the form out, enter your information, then click next. Then you might receive an additional screen that asks you to verify the address that you've entered. That's just to make sure that they're going to be sending things to the correct address. Once you've reviewed it all and you think it's all correct, simply click submit, and that has now been the official filing of your claim. And in response, you are going to get a claim number. Now, once you do all that, that's not the end of it, though, because now there's going to be some additional information, essentially documentation that establishes who you are, if you will. So most claims are going to require a completed and signed claim form, as well as a copy of both your photo identification and legal document listing Social Security number. Essentially, what's going to happen is when you get to this point in the process, you will be told in a responsive email, if you will, if you're dealing with email or by the mail otherwise, what specific information you have to provide to confirm your identity. That information that gets sent to the state of Michigan. If you're doing it electronically, you can upload the documents, send them through the internet, or there's an address available where you can mail those documents. Now, you simply sit back and you wait for the state of Michigan to process your claim. You can go online. You've got a claim number. You can go online whenever you want to. Go back to that website, put in your claim number, and you can track the status of the processing of your claim. Pretty simple process. Encourage all of you out there, at least go and check. Go run a search. You might be surprised. There might be a bank account from many, many years ago that you forgot about, or a lost stock certificate, or a check maybe that you didn't know about or didn't remember. Whatever it happens to be, it's only going to take a little bit of your time to go ahead and do searches for those things. Now, one note, too, there are companies out there, and I've gotten these letters before, clients have gotten these letters, received these letters before, where someone says, hey, we think you've got unclaimed property from the state of Michigan. Would you like us to go search for that? And in return for that, they're going to want to take a cut. So if you say yes, they're going to essentially do what I just told you can do on your own. They're going to go to the website. In fact, they might have already been to the website. They might have already been doing a search for something else and came across your name, whatever it happens to be. But they're going to do the very same thing that you are able to do yourself. They're going to go then file the claim on your behalf, which is the very same thing that you are able to do yourself. And in return, they're going to take some of your money. So I suggest before you use one of those services, go and find out yourself whether or not there's unclaimed property that the state of Michigan has for you. Also, this is only Michigan. If you've ever lived in another state, if you remember what I talked about, Michigan law requires the holder of property for somebody who had a Michigan address to turn that property over to the state of Michigan. Every state has, as far as I know, their own separate process for searching unclaimed property. So if you ever live someplace else in the United States, I would encourage you, there is likely a website similar to the Michigan Department of Treasury, and go search for your lost property. You might be very surprised to find out what is out there. It raises a question, though, how can you prevent your property from being turned over to the state first? How can you avoid that from even happening? Well, here's some things that you might want to do to try and keep the property from ever going to the state in the first place. First, keep records, accurate, current records of all of these financial type assets that you have. When you move or change address, notify all the companies who are holders of your property that you have moved and give them your current address. Keep accounts active by doing something on the account. Don't just let it sit there and accumulate interest, because an account that's just sitting there accumulating interest is not considered an active account. And after a period of time, it will get turned over to the state of Michigan. So don't just keep money in an account and not even look at it anymore and assume it's just going to collect interest, because one day it will, what we call escheat. That's the legal term when it goes to the state of Michigan. So make sure your accounts are active. Do something on the account. Or if not, just close the account out perhaps. Checks. Cash every check that you receive. Don't just stick it in a drawer, stick it on the counter, stick someplace where it might be lost or forgotten. Cash them so that they don't end up going into unclaimed property. And it would be a good idea, and this is a good idea also from an estate planning standpoint too, but make sure a family member or trusted person, and now that's going to be someone, if you're doing an estate plan, that's going to be in charge of settling your estate, make sure that they know where your financial records are. Where do you keep them in the house? Are they in a desk drawer? Are they in a cabinet in a closet? Do you have safe deposit boxes where important records are going to be kept so that people know where to look? Because think about this. You die, there might be assets out there that if no one knows about them, after a period of time, those assets are, in fact, going to end up going to the Michigan Department of Treasury as unclaimed property. And perhaps the estate's all been settled, estate's been distributed out, no one even knew that you had the account in the first place, and the heirs could be losing out on assets because there wasn't a record. Side note that really kind of goes along with this too. Many of you out there with your bank accounts, with your investment accounts, and I've talked about this previously, are going to opt to have electronic statements. Rather than paper, you're going to save some trees. I have no problem with saving trees, but think this one through. If all you have are electronic statements coming, and there is no record otherwise that you even have that account, and you die or become incapacitated, how is anybody going to even know that you have the account? Because it's an electronic statement. It might have been going to your email address, and perhaps no one even knew that you had an email that you were using, or even knew what your email address was, or hasn't been able to get access to it. Make sure that you have a record somewhere that your trusted person who's going to be in charge of your estate and your affairs knows where to look so that they don't overlook an account. And that's one of the problems that we're seeing today with many estates where there are simply electronic statements. You can continue to use them. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to choose to get paper statements, but make sure it's doubly important in that case that you have a record that somebody can go to and know that you, in fact, have that account. Well, that's it for our June 11th program. As always, if you have a comment about the program, or perhaps a topic that you'd like to have me discuss, or questions that you would like to have answered. As I've indicated before, many of the topics that we talked about in previous episodes and in future episodes are based upon topics where people have asked us to talk about them, or perhaps questions that have been sent to us. We want to make sure that we are providing you with the information that is relevant to what is of a concern to you in answering the questions that you have. Simply send me an email, tom@tuesdaywithtom.com, or mail me a postcard, Tom Doyle, P.O. Box 16066, Lansing, Michigan 48901. And as always, Please, if you're not already, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. That would be Tuesday with Tom. Follow the office on Facebook and Twitter. That is Doyle Law PC. Remember, too, the Tuesday with Tom app is available in the App Store and Google Play. The program is still available on iTunes. If you've been listening to what Apple is doing, they're kind of sorting out iTunes, and they're going to end up having a separate podcast arrangement outside of the music. So they're going to have music as one app probably, and podcast as another app, but will still be available in whatever the new generation is of iTunes, which becomes some sort of a podcast service. Of course, you can always ask your smart speaker to play Tuesday with Tom as well. Thank you again for spending some of your Tuesday with us today. And as always, I hope that you have an awesome day and an awesome week in Michigan. Tuesday with Tom has been brought to you by the estate planning attorneys at Doyle Law PC. To learn how we can help you with your estate plan or with settling a loved one's estate, please call us today at 517-323-7366. That's 517-323-7366.